The evening light filtered through the living room window, casting long shadows across the floor as I settled into my favorite chair, the familiar creak of the wood welcoming me home. I had just returned from a grueling day at work, my mind still buzzing with deadlines and meetings. I sighed, letting the tension of the day seep from my shoulders. It was supposed to be a quiet evening, just me and the comforting hum of our shared life. As I booted up my laptop, I was greeted by the familiar interface of Google Drive, the digital repository of our shared memories, projects, and life plans. My wife, Sarah, and I had been using it for years, a tool that had helped us coordinate everything from our travel itineraries to grocery lists. I clicked on the folder labeled Letters, a collection of drafts and notes we had written to each other over the years. It was a kind of digital scrapbook, filled with love notes and plans for our future. But what I found there was anything but a love letter. The document that caught my eye was titled For You. Intrigued, I clicked on it, expecting a whimsical note or perhaps a romantic gesture. Instead, my heart dropped as I began to read the flowing script, the words dancing across the screen like a dagger aimed straight at my heart. It was a letter filled with declarations of love, sweet nothings, and intimate details that were clearly intended for someone else. His smile lights up my world, the letter began, and I felt the air evaporate from the room. I read on, each line cutting deeper into my chest. The way she described this other man, the way she spoke of her feelings, it felt like I was intruding on something sacred, something that wasn't meant for my eyes. My stomach churned, and I could feel the heat rising to my face. Betrayal. Confusion. Anger. They all crashed over me like waves, drowning me in a sea of emotions I couldn't process. How could she? My mind raced as I tried to piece together the fragments of our life together. The late nights at work, the sudden changes in her routine, the way she had seemed distant lately. Had it all been a lie? I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, teetering on the brink of despair. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking. I needed to think, to breathe. I stood up, pacing the room as I replayed the letter in my mind. The words echoed in my ears, each one a reminder of the trust that had been shattered. I felt like a fool. Had I been so blind? I thought of the moments we'd shared, the laughter, the quiet evenings, the dreams we had built together. They all felt tainted now, as if they had been painted over with a brush dipped in betrayal. I needed answers. The thought of confronting Sarah filled me with dread, but I couldn't let this go. I had to know the truth. Did she love him? Had she been unfaithful? The questions swirled in my mind, relentless and unforgiving. I grabbed my phone, my fingers hovering over her contact. Should I call her? Ask her outright? The thought of her voice, the warmth that usually accompanied it, now felt like a cruel reminder of what I might be losing. But I couldn't wait. I needed to act. As I stood there, the weight of the letter heavy in my chest, I knew this was just the beginning. I had uncovered something that would change everything, and I had to unravel the threads of deceit before they ensnared me completely. This letter had opened a door I never wanted to see. Now, the question was, would I walk through it, or would I turn away and pretend it didn't exist? The night dragged on, thick with tension and uncertainty. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the shadows dancing across the plaster like the ghosts of memories that haunted me. Sarah was curled up next to me, her soft breaths a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. I couldn't help but steal glances at her, the woman I thought I knew so well. How could she betray me like this? The warmth of her body felt like a lie, a cruel reminder of the intimacy we once shared. My mind spiraled into a chaotic whirlpool of emotions. Betrayal was a bitter taste in my mouth, one that I couldn't shake. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of confusion, each wave crashing over me, pulling me further down. How could she write such beautiful words for someone else? Did she think of me when she penned those lines, or had I become a mere shadow in her life? The letter echoed in my mind. His smile lights up my world. Those words cut deeper than any knife. I remembered the last time we had been together, how she had smiled at me, her eyes bright with affection. Had it all been an act? My heart raced as I recalled those moments, the laughter we shared over dinner, the stolen kisses in the kitchen. They now felt tainted, as if I had been living in a dream that had suddenly turned into a nightmare. I turned onto my side, facing her. She looked so peaceful, so innocent in her sleep. I wanted to reach out and touch her, to feel the warmth of her skin against mine, but my hand hovered above her, trembling with the weight of my discovery. I wanted to shake her awake, to demand answers, but I was paralyzed by fear. What if I was wrong? What if this was all a misunderstanding? The thought of confronting her filled me with dread, and I was caught in a vicious cycle of doubt and suspicion. As the hours ticked by, I replayed the letter in my mind, dissecting every word. Was it just a moment of weakness? A fleeting fancy? Or was this something deeper, something that had been brewing beneath the surface for longer than I realized? The uncertainty gnawed at me, each unanswered question a thorn in my side. I had always trusted Sarah. She was my partner, my confidant, the woman I had promised to love through thick and thin. The idea that she could betray that trust felt like a betrayal of everything we had built together. The memories of our wedding day flashed in my mind, the vows we exchanged, the promises we made. They felt like a distant echo, fading into the background as the reality of the present crashed over me. I had to know more. The thought of confronting her was terrifying, but the idea of living in ignorance was even worse. My heart raced as I considered my options. Should I confront her now, while emotions were still raw? Or should I wait, gather evidence, and approach her with a clearer head? I knew I couldn't go on like this, pretending everything was fine while my world was crumbling around me. The sun began to rise, casting a pale light into the room. I rolled over, watching the golden rays dance across Sarah's face, illuminating the features I had come to love so dearly. I felt a pang of sadness wash over me. How could I reconcile the woman I loved with the one who had written that letter? It felt impossible. Finally, I made a decision. I would investigate. I would dig deeper into this mystery that had invaded my life, and I would uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I needed to know if my suspicions were valid or if I was simply allowing my fears to get the best of me. As I lay there, the weight of my resolve settled over me, and I felt a flicker of determination ignite within. I would not let this destroy me. I would confront the truth, and then I would decide what to do next. The day stretched before me, a blank canvas waiting to be filled with answers. I would not rest until I had uncovered the reality behind the words that had shattered my world. The day unfolded slowly, each hour dragging like an eternity. I spent the morning pretending to be normal, engaging in mundane tasks that felt painfully hollow. The sun streamed through the kitchen window as I prepared breakfast, the familiar sounds of sizzling bacon and brewing coffee doing little to lift the heavy fog that had settled in my mind. I tried to focus on the aroma of the food, the warmth of the sunlight, but all I could think about was that letter. As I sat at the table, I glanced at the empty chair across from me, the one Sarah usually occupied. I remembered the mornings filled with laughter and shared dreams, the way we would plan our weekends over coffee, discussing everything from our next vacation to the future we envisioned together. Those moments now felt like fleeting memories, overshadowed by the dark cloud of betrayal that loomed over me. Suddenly, I was transported back to a summer day 3 years ago, when we had taken a spontaneous trip to the coast. The sun had been shining brightly as we strolled along the sandy beach, hand in hand, the waves crashing at our feet. I could almost hear her laughter, a sound that filled me with warmth and joy. We had built sandcastles and chased each other through the surf, our faces illuminated with pure happiness. In that moment, I had felt invincible, as if nothing could ever come between us. But now, as I sat alone at the table, that happiness felt like a cruel joke. Had she been thinking of someone else during those blissful moments? Had I been blind to the signs of her discontent? I shook my head, trying to dispel the thoughts that threatened to consume me. I needed to remember the love we had shared, the bond that had once felt unbreakable. Another memory surfaced, this one from our anniversary last year. I had surprised her with a candlelit dinner at home, complete with her favorite dishes. We had laughed and reminisced about our first date, the awkwardness of it all, and how far we had come since then. I had looked into her eyes that night, and I had seen a reflection of the love we had built together. How could that same woman write such intimate words for another man? The contrast was unbearable. I pushed my plate away, losing my appetite. The letters she had penned for him had shattered my perception of her. I felt like I was trapped in a twisted version of our lives, where every cherished moment was now tainted with doubt. I wanted to believe that I was misreading the situation, that the letter was nothing more than a fleeting moment of weakness, but the weight of the evidence pressed down on me like a stone. The memories continued to flood my mind, each one a reminder of what I stood to lose. I thought of our wedding day, the way she had glided down the aisle, her smile radiant and full of love. I remembered the vows we had exchanged, the promises we had made in front of our closest friends and family. The memory of her voice, filled with hope and commitment, echoed in my ears. And now, I was left grappling with the possibility that those vows meant nothing to her. I felt a wave of anger rise within me. How could she do this? How could she betray the love we had built together? The thought consumed me, fueling my determination to uncover the truth. I needed to know who this man was, what he meant to her, and if there was still a chance to salvage our marriage. As I stood up from the table, I felt a sense of resolve wash over me. I would not let the shadows of doubt linger in my life any longer. I had to confront the reality of the situation head-on. I needed to investigate, to find the answers that would either confirm my worst fears or bring me some semblance of peace. With a newfound purpose, I turned my attention to my phone. I began searching for clues, scrolling through our shared Google Drive, looking for any other documents that might shed light on Sarah's feelings. I opened folders filled with our life together, searching for anything that might hint at her betrayal. As I clicked through the files, I felt a growing sense of dread, the anticipation of unearthing something that could either break me further or provide clarity. But deep down, I knew that whatever I found would change everything. I braced myself for the truth, whatever it might be. The hours dragged on, and the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a harsh light in the room that felt almost mocking. I sat at my desk, staring at the screen, my heart racing as I navigated through the folders of our shared Google Drive. Each click felt like a gamble, a step closer to uncovering the truth or plunging deeper into despair. I started with the document titled Plans, a compilation of our future aspirations and dreams. As I scrolled through the text, my heart sank. There was no mention of the life we had built together, only vague references to travel and personal growth. It was as if she had been living in two worlds, one with me and one with him. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I realized how little I truly knew about her recent thoughts and feelings. Next, I opened a folder labeled Journals. It contained entries she had written over the years, a chronicle of her innermost thoughts. I hesitated, knowing that delving into her private reflections felt like an invasion of trust, but the need to understand pushed me forward. I clicked on the most recent entry, dated just a week prior. As I read, I felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under me. In it, she spoke of feeling lost, of yearning for something more than the life we had built together. She described moments of doubt, questioning her happiness and her future. The words were raw and honest, but they also resonated with an unsettling sense of longing. I could feel the ache in her heart, the emptiness she had been grappling with, and it filled me with a mix of sympathy and rage. How could she feel this way and yet still carry on with me? I closed the document, my breath coming in short gasps. I felt betrayed, not just by the potential infidelity but by the fact that she had chosen to keep these feelings hidden from me. I had always considered us partners, a team navigating life together, but now it felt like I was standing on the outside, looking in at a world she had kept from me. I needed more evidence. I couldn't confront her without knowing the full extent of her feelings. I turned my attention to her phone, which lay charging on the kitchen counter. It felt wrong to invade her privacy, but desperation clawed at me. I had to know. I crept into the kitchen, my heart pounding in my chest. The phone lit up with a notification, and I hesitated. What if I found something that would confirm my worst fears? But what if I didn't look and lived in ignorance? The thought of the letter haunted me, and I steeled myself, reaching for the device. I quickly unlocked her phone, my fingers trembling. The screen was filled with messages, texts from friends, family, and then, buried among them, a conversation with someone whose name I didn't recognize. My breath caught in my throat as I opened the thread, my heart racing. The messages were flirty, playful banter that made my stomach churn. They spoke of inside jokes and shared moments that I had never been a part of. I felt the walls closing in around me, the reality of her betrayal pressing down like a heavy weight. "Can't wait to see you again," one message read. "You make me feel alive." The words echoed in my mind, a stark contrast to the life we had built together. I felt sick, a mix of anger and heartbreak flooding through me. How could she say those things to someone else? I scrolled further, my hands shaking. I needed to know who this person was, what they meant to her. I clicked on their profile, and a photo popped up, a man with a charming smile, eyes that sparkled with mischief. I felt a surge of rage. Who was he, and how dare he invade my life? I quickly closed the app, my heart racing. I needed to process this information, to put the pieces together. I couldn't confront Sarah without knowing everything. I had to find out who he was, what their relationship entailed, and whether I had any chance of salvaging what was left of my marriage. I spent the next hour combing through social media, searching for the man in the photo. I found him easily, a friend of Sarah's from college. The realization twisted in my gut. He was someone she had known for years, someone who had been a part of her life long before I had entered the picture. The thought made me feel vulnerable, as if he had been lurking in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to swoop in. The more I dug, the more I found photos of them together, laughing, celebrating milestones that I hadn't been a part of. It felt like a betrayal, a secret life that had been hidden from me. I couldn't shake the feeling of being a fool, a man blind to the reality of his marriage. As I closed my laptop, a sense of dread washed over me. I was standing on the precipice of confrontation, but I needed to gather the strength to face her. I had to know if she loved him, if there was any chance of reclaiming what we had lost. The clock ticked ominously in the background, each second a reminder that time was slipping away. I couldn't postpone the inevitable any longer. I had to confront her, to demand the truth, and I knew I had to do it soon. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow through the living room window. I paced back and forth, my heart pounding in my chest. The weight of the evidence I had uncovered felt like a boulder pressing down on my shoulders. I could no longer avoid the confrontation that loomed ahead. I had to face Sarah and demand the truth, no matter how much it terrified me. As I heard the sound of her key turning in the lock, I felt a surge of adrenaline. My mind raced with 1,000 scenarios, each one darker than the last. What if she denied everything? What if she admitted to it, and my worst fears were confirmed? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the moment that was about to change everything. The door swung open, and Sarah stepped inside, her face lighting up when she saw me. "Hey! You're home early," she exclaimed, her voice bright and cheerful. The sight of her, so full of life, made my heart ache. How could she act so normal after everything? "Yeah, I've been home for a while," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk." Her expression shifted instantly, the smile faltering as she sensed the gravity in my tone. "Talk? About what?" She set her bag down and walked into the living room, her body language suddenly tense. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, the words I had rehearsed in my mind feeling inadequate. "About us," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "About the letter I found in the Google Drive." Her eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing her face. "What letter?" she asked, her voice too casual, too rehearsed. It was as if she was trying to play it off, but I could see the cracks beginning to form. "The one you wrote for someone else," I said, my voice firm now. "The one that made it clear you have feelings for another man." Silence enveloped the room, thick and suffocating. I could see the realization wash over her, the color draining from her face. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, but I could hear the tremor in her voice. "Don't lie to me, Sarah." "I read it," I shot back, my anger flaring. How could you do this? How could you write those words for someone else while you're married to me? Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape, but there was none. It was just a draft, she said, her voice rising in pitch. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything? I snapped, my frustration boiling over. You poured your heart out on that page. You talked about how this other guy makes you feel alive. How can you say it didn't mean anything? I was confused, she exclaimed, her voice breaking. I didn't know how to express what I was feeling. I thought I could write it out and figure it out later. Figure it out later? I echoed, incredulous. You're telling me you had feelings for someone else, and you thought writing a letter was the solution? What about us, Sarah? What about our life together? Tears filled her eyes, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. But it was quickly overshadowed by the hurt and betrayal that had taken root in my heart. I never meant for you to find out, she said, her voice trembling. I was going through a rough patch, and I didn't know how to talk to you about it. I was scared of hurting you. Scared of hurting me? I replied, my voice rising again. You're hurting me now. You've been hiding this from me, and I deserve to know the truth. Who is he? What's going on between you two? She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. His name is Mark. We were friends in college, and we reconnected recently. It's not what you think, I promise. We were just talking. He was someone I confided in when I felt lost. Confided in? Is that what you call it? I shot back, anger bubbling to the surface. You've been sharing your feelings with him, while I'm left in the dark. You've put me in a position where I have to question everything we've built together. I know, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I made a mistake. I never meant for it to go this far. I was just trying to figure things out. Figure things out? I repeated, incredulous. You could have talked to me. You could have come to me with your doubts and fears. But instead, you chose to write a letter to him, to share your secrets with someone else. Do you even love me anymore? Tears streamed down her cheeks as she shook her head. I do love you. I don't know how to explain what I'm feeling. I was lost, and I reached out to someone who understood. Understood what? I pressed. Understood your infidelity? Understood how to break my heart? She stepped closer, her hands trembling as she reached out to me. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Please, let's talk about this. We can work through it together. But as I looked into her eyes, filled with regret and desperation, I felt a wall begin to rise between us. The trust that had once bound us together was unraveling, and I didn't know if I could ever put it back together again. I don't know if I can do that, I said, my voice heavy with emotion. You've shattered my trust, and now I have to decide whether I can forgive you or if it's time to walk away. The weight of my words hung in the air, and I could see the realization dawn on her, the gravity of what we were facing. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a fracture in our relationship that might never heal. As I turned away, the enormity of our situation pressed down on me like a suffocating blanket. I needed to think, to process everything that had just transpired. The future we had envisioned together felt uncertain, and I was left standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. The silence that followed my words was deafening. I could feel the air thick with unspoken emotions, the tension hanging like a storm cloud ready to burst. Sarah's tear-streaked face was a painful reminder of the love we had once shared, now overshadowed by betrayal and uncertainty. I turned away, needing space to gather my thoughts, to process the whirlwind of feelings that threatened to overwhelm me. I stepped out onto the balcony, the cool evening air brushing against my skin, a welcome relief from the suffocating atmosphere inside. I leaned against the railing, staring out at the city skyline, the lights twinkling like distant stars. It was a beautiful view, one I had admired countless times with Sarah by my side. But tonight, it felt hollow, a stark reminder of the love that was slipping through my fingers. What now? The question echoed in my mind. I had confronted her, and the truth was out, but the path forward was shrouded in darkness. I felt lost, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. Could I ever trust her again? Could we rebuild our marriage after this? The thought of starting over felt daunting, like climbing a mountain with no summit in sight. I heard the door slide open behind me and turned to see Sarah stepping out, her expression a mix of hope and despair. "Please, can we talk?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't want to lose you." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "You already have," I replied, my voice steady but filled with pain. "You've broken something between us that can't be easily fixed." "But I love you," she pleaded, stepping closer, desperation etched on her face. "I made a mistake." I was confused and scared. "I never meant for any of this to happen. Can't we work through it together?" The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, but I felt a flicker of anger rise within me. "How can I believe that?" I shot back. "You turned to someone else instead of coming to me. You chose to share your feelings with him. That's not something you just gloss over. It's a betrayal, Sarah." "I know," she whispered, her eyes pleading. "But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I'll go to counseling, I'll talk to you about everything. Just please don't walk away." I studied her, searching for any sign of the love that had once filled our marriage. The woman standing before me was a reflection of the pain I felt, regret, sorrow, and a desperate longing for forgiveness. But I also saw the shadows of doubt creeping in. Could I truly trust her again? The thought of opening my heart to her felt like stepping onto thin ice. "I don't know if I can," I said finally, my voice cracking. "This isn't something that can be fixed overnight. I need time to think, to process everything." She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I understand. I just want you to know that I'll fight for us. I don't want to lose you." As I watched her retreat back inside, I felt a pang of sadness. The love we had built together was crumbling, and I was left holding the pieces, unsure of how to put them back together. I stepped inside, the warmth of the room contrasting sharply with the chill in my heart. Days turned into weeks, and the aftermath of our confrontation weighed heavily on us both. We went through the motions of our daily lives, but the air was thick with tension and unspoken words. I found myself questioning every moment we shared, every smile, every touch. What had once been a source of joy now felt like a reminder of the betrayal. Sarah kept her promise to fight for us. She initiated counseling sessions, poured her heart out to me, and made efforts to reconnect. But every time she reached for my hand, I felt a wall rise between us, a barrier built from the hurt and mistrust that lingered like a shadow. I struggled to let go of the past, finding it difficult to trust her words when the scars of betrayal were still fresh. One night, after a particularly emotional session, I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the television. I could hear Sarah in the kitchen, the clatter of dishes a distant sound. I felt a wave of fatigue wash over me, the exhaustion of carrying this burden wearing me down. My phone buzzed beside me, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a message from Mark. "Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you need to talk." The sight of his name ignited a fire within me. Rage surged, mingled with heartbreak, as I thought of the role he had played in this mess. I didn't respond, instead tossing my phone aside, the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. That night, as I lay in bed beside Sarah, I could feel her warmth next to me, but it felt foreign, like a memory of what we once had. I turned my back to her, staring into the darkness, the silence heavy with unspoken words. I could hear her soft breaths, a reminder of the love and trust that had been shattered. In that moment, I realized that healing would take time, time to rebuild the trust that had been lost, time to confront the feelings of betrayal that lingered. I didn't know what the future held for us, but I knew I had to take it one day at a time. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a flicker of hope mixed with uncertainty. Perhaps we could find our way back to each other, but it would require honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront the demons that threatened to tear us apart. The road ahead was unclear, but I was determined to navigate it, no matter how difficult the journey might be. Love, after all, was worth fighting for even when it felt like the ground was crumbling beneath our feet. The weight of the truth hung heavy in the air, but as the days turned into weeks, I began to see the flicker of hope amidst the darkness. Our lives had become a delicate dance of vulnerability and courage, each step forward a testament to our commitment to rebuild what had been broken. Sarah worked tirelessly to show me her dedication, her efforts a soothing balm to my wounded heart. We attended therapy sessions together, sharing our fears and frustrations, peeling back the layers of hurt to expose the raw wounds underneath. Each conversation felt like an excavation, unearthing buried emotions and long-held grievances that had festered in silence. Slowly, I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, the warmth in her laughter, the sparkle in her eyes, the softness of her touch. There were moments when we'd share a smile, a spark of connection that made me believe we could find our way back. Yet, the moments of doubt still lingered, shadows that danced at the edges of my mind, reminding me of the betrayal that had rocked my world. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I found myself stealing glances at her. The familiar contours of her face, the way she bit her lip when she was lost in thought, and the way she leaned into me felt like a ghost of our past. I wanted desperately to reach out, to bridge the gap that had formed between us, but the fear of falling back into the abyss held me captive. Out of the blue, my phone buzzed again, pulling me from my reverie. I glanced at the screen, and my heart sank. Another message from Mark. "Hey, just wanted to check how things are going. I'm here if you need someone to talk to." The anger flared within me once more, a flame of betrayal reigniting. I could feel Sarah's gaze on me, her eyes searching for answers. "Who is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's Mark," I replied, my tone sharp. "He keeps reaching out, like he has some right to be in my life after everything that's happened." "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I told him to stop, but I think he doesn't want to let go of our friendship." "Friendship?" I echoed, incredulity lacing my words. "After what he did, how can you still call it that? I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "I was lost and confused," she said, tears pooling in her eyes. "I know I've hurt you, but I want to make it right. I love you. You're my husband." Her words cut through me, and I felt the tension in the air shift. For a moment, I saw the desperation in her eyes, the rawness of her emotions, and it made me question everything I thought I knew. "I need time," I said finally, my voice heavy. "I need to figure out if I can trust you again." "Please," she whispered, reaching out to grasp my hand. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Her warmth was a reminder of the bond we once shared, and I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Perhaps we could navigate this storm together, but it would require honesty, commitment, and an unwavering willingness to confront the truth. As the days passed, I began to see glimmers of change in our relationship. We started to communicate openly, sharing our thoughts and fears, delving into the depths of the pain we had endured. Sarah remained steadfast in her commitment to making amends, her actions reflecting her sincerity. I realized that healing wouldn't be linear, there would be good days and bad days, but as long as we were willing to confront our fears together, there was a chance to rebuild. One afternoon, while walking through the park, I took Sarah's hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine. "Let's take it one day at a time," I said, my voice steady. "But I need to know that there are no more secrets. No more hiding." "I promise," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. "I'll be an open book. No more walls between us." In that moment, I felt the heaviness of our past begin to lift, replaced by the possibility of a brighter future. Trust would take time to rebuild, and the scars of betrayal would always linger, but love, when nurtured, had a remarkable ability to heal even the deepest wounds. With each passing day, we learned to navigate our new reality, the fragility of trust, the importance of open communication, and the power of vulnerability. We were a work in progress, each step forward a testament to our love and determination. As I lay in bed one night, Sarah curled up beside me, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. We had come through the storm, and while the road ahead was still uncertain, I was no longer afraid to walk it together. love was worth fighting for, even when it felt like the ground was crumbling beneath our feet. And as I drifted off to sleep, I knew that we were not just rebuilding our marriage, we were forging something stronger, a bond that could withstand the trials of life, anchored by honesty, trust, and an unwavering commitment to each other.